Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Rei-Lin, and today I'm going to be bringing you some more World of Warcraft Legion. And I wanted to talk about one of my favorite classes, the Rogue, and the new Outlaw specialization. It's a modification, more or less, of the old Combat Rogue specialization with a few new tricks of the trade going on. I'm not going to do a very detailed analysis of it right now, the specialization and all the talents and when you should use what. It's just basically an overview so that if you're just about to start leveling your rogue, or maybe you want this to be your main character, then it'll be kind of like just for more informational purposes. Basically, the Outlaw Rogue kind of rolls over from combat with a couple of new tricks. They do use swords. Their artifact weapon is the Dread Blades. It is dual swords, and they are fairly slow at 2.6 speed. So you don't attack that often, but you hit really, really hard. And this spec tends to feel a little bit sluggish until you start getting some decent gear, and then your crits start going way up, and you start getting some more energy regeneration, and you end up doing a lot of damage. Right now it is kind of the go-to spec for pretty much anything in the game, whether you're doing single target, multi-target, raids, mythics, 5-mans, or just plain old questing and doing world quests. And I'm still, of course, questing myself and doing mythics and raids and as much stuff as I can do to get my item level up. I'm only at 842 right now. My Dread Blades are doing decent, though. I've got 17 points put into it right now. And as you can see, a little less than half is already gone into the Dread Blades, and I've got decent relics for now. They're not the best, but they're not that bad either. And I'll go into more detail later about maybe the path you should take here and all of that, but for now, let's just stick with some basic stuff. The big thing with Outlaw Rogue, there's a couple of big things, so let's start with the basic one. You have some ranged attacks now. You have Pistol Shot, which is a 20-yard range, and you have Between the Eyes. Between the Eyes is Kidney Shot, only with a 20-yard range. And it uses combo points just like all the other rogue abilities. You have Saber Slash. It has a 35% chance to double hit, so it's a Sinister Strike that, just like it used to be able to give you 2 combo points if a double hits. It will, of course, give you 2 combo points. If it does double hit, your Pistol Shot automatically becomes a free use, and it awards 1 combo point. So you can trade off between Saber Slash and Pistol Shot and get some combo point generation going on, and it's pretty fun when it happens multiple times in a row. But it is still only a 35% chance. The big deal with Outlaw Rogues is this skill right here. It's called Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones gives you 1 of 6 buffs. You can get all 6, but the chance is that you will, it's very, very low that you get all 6 of the buffs at once. And these buffs are basically just pure DPS increases. Some of them give you extra combo points when you build combo points. Some of them give you extra energy regeneration. One of the buffs gives you a 25% critical hit chance. One of them gives you more attack speed and 20% leech, which means you heal for 20% of the damage that you're doing, which is useful in some situations. You have one of the buffs gives you cooldown reductions every time you use a finishing move by 2 seconds per combo point. So all of them in one way or another are useful, and of course certain ones are more useful than others. So the problem with Roll the Bones and the joy of Roll the Bones is the RNG aspect of it. It's completely random which of the buffs you get and which of the buffs that you want to keep. Some of them are good, but if you only roll 1 buff, you're generally going to keep trying to re-roll the bones to get more than 1 buff. The minimum right now is that you always re-roll until you have at least 2 of the buffs. And regardless of which ones they are, you may want to keep them just because you can't spend an entire boss fight just rolling the bones and doing no damage. It doesn't really help your team. But at the same time, you don't want to be stuck with a couple of buffs that aren't really useful to you, depending on the fight. Some you might want to have some extra healing, some you might want to have extra combo point generation, some you might want to have cooldown reduction. You have some leeway on which buffs you want to keep and which you want to re-roll all the time. But generally, if you get at least 2 of the buffs, regardless of what they are, you generally want to keep them, unless you got 2 buffs right off the bat and you want to risk rolling the bones again and getting 2 more buffs. But either case, the buffs that you get are really cool, and you have to judge for yourself based on the situation which of the buffs you want to keep and which you want to ditch and try again. But keep in mind, you don't want to spend all day trying to reroll the bones, because Outlaw Rogues don't regenerate much energy very quickly unless they have a lot of haste. And to go into super details right now is just going to confuse the hell out of everybody, so I'll work on that in a little bit later video and get a little bit more specific into the nitty gritty. But for now, I'm just going to do a very quick basic talent build here, just as what I'm using on and off, and these do change. Don't think that this is a concrete, oh, this is the highest DPS you're going to do. This is just what I'm doing as I'm doing world quests, and I'm doing a lot of 5-man stuff and just grinding out mobs out in the world. So any of these are subject to change. None of this is for a raid. I'm just going to point out what I'm using and let it go at that. Right off, I'm using Quick Draw. When pistol shot becomes a free shot, meaning saber slash is double hit, it generates 2 combo points instead of 1, and it does 50% more damage. And that's pretty useful because, by itself it doesn't do that much damage, but this will make it do a hell of a lot more in line with most of your other moves. Not nearly as much as, like, a run through or between the eyes, but it's not meant to. But it can easily hit for 200, 250k on a critical hit. So this just adds a little bit more combo point generation to the Outlaw Rogue. I go with Grappling Hook. I switch off between this and all the others. They're all good in different situations. Right now I'm messing around with Grappling Hook. It's a 30-second mobility. It's got a 40-yard range, and it yanks you in that direction. You can use it in stealth. It does not break stealth. Highly, highly useful, and a lot of fun for climbing up and down mountainsides. Deeper Stratagem. This gives me 6 combo points, which, as you may have noticed up here, I do have 6 combo points, and it makes my finishing moves deal 10% increased damage. For run through, this is insanely good because you can put relics into your artifact weapon, which basically just buff run through's damage through the roof, and adding this another 10% right on top, you can see some crazy good numbers when you use run through with Deeper Stratagem. I take Iron Stomach because I like to be kind of self-sufficient out in the world when I'm either soloing elites or some of the world bosses, or just in dungeons and the healer is falling behind. And this just adds 30% extra healing to your Crimson Vial, healing potions, and Hellstones. Very, very useful. I take Prey on the Weak at the 75 talent, mainly because a lot of more enemies in the game now are susceptible to Blind, Gouge, Cheap Shot, and Sap. And so if they're affected by one of those, they take 10% increased damage from everybody in your group. And for raids, that would be really useful. Obviously, none of this stuff's going to work on a boss, but if there's a lot of trash that is dangerous and can be stunned with your Cheap Shot, that extra 10% can go a long way in burning them down. So I take Prey on the Weak. This is another one of those things that it's kind of, do you want AoE damage with Cannonball Barrage, or do you want some more single target, or do you want more raid? So right now, since I'm just playing around with it, I'm taking and trying out Cannonball Barrage. It's a 1-minute cooldown, and through the Roll of the Bones, you can get the buff that reduces your cooldowns, and this comes up a lot more often if you get that buff and play around with it. It's just fun. It's a nice little AoE and sticks with kind of the outlaw / pirate theme that Blizzard seems to be going with the rogues right now. And finally, at the 100 talent, I take Mark for Death. This doesn't initially seem that useful, but it's on a 1-minute cooldown. It instantly gives you 5 combo points. Now what this does is allow you to start any fight with Roll the Bones up and 36 seconds on the buffs. And it also allows you to immediately reroll if you decide to wait and just open on the mob, because if you just open immediately, you can easily get 6 combo points on your opener, roll the bones. If you don't get something good, you can mark for death, roll the bones again, and hope and pray that you've gotten better buffs than the first roll. So this just allows you to do that. On mobs that die really quick, you can turn on Blade Flurry, for example, mark for death, run through. And then as soon as it dies, you can mark for death, run through the very next target. When it dies, repeat. And it allows you to hit really, really hard without having to waste your energy trying to build everything back up with just Saber Slash. So in a way, this is really useful because as soon as anything dies, it resets the cooldown on mark for death. So really useful in my opinion. I really like it. Death from Above and Slice and Dice, you know, they're situational. Slice and Dice, just not very good. It basically replaces your Roll the Bones with Slice and Dice. So I'll go into more depth in another video later about which one of these talents you should have more or less for rating and which ones are not that great. But for now, that's just for me playing around. To wrap this all up, the Outlaw Rogue is sitting pretty at the top of most of the damage charts for single target and multi-target and pretty much anything. It's a well-rounded spec, and it has a lot of single target burst damage. Now, the old combat rogues did not really have a lot of burst damage. You had Adrenaline Rush, for example, and that allowed you to do some things, but you didn't have multiple vanishes and, you know, really high ambushes and shadow steps and shadow dances like the other two specs. And so it's kind of odd that they now have a lot of very high single target burst damage. And the reason for that is your artifact weapon, Curse of the Dreadblades. This is a 1.5 minute cooldown, and basically what it does is anything that builds combo points, so your Saber Slash and your Pistol Shot, will instantly give you maximum combo points. And so your rotation simply becomes use Adrenaline Rush, use Curse of the Dreadblades, use Saber Slash, run through, Saber Slash, run through, back and forth, back and forth. At some point your Saber Slash is going to make you run out of energy, but by the time that happens, you're probably going to have at least one free pistol shot, which will also give you maximum combo points. So it's back and forth till Saber Slash double hits, use your 6, use pistol shot, use your 6, and go back to Saber Slash, run through, Saber Slash, run through. It allows you to spike your damage from around 200,000 or so DPS on the damage meters up to 600,000 or 700,000 for as long as this buff lasts, which is 12 seconds. So that is the biggest reason why the Outlaw Rogue is seen as kind of the king of the hill right now as far as the rogue specs go, just because you have Blade Flurry to really throw in there and get a lot of AoE damage going on, and you have Curse of the Dreadblades. It just allows you to do so much damage to single target that, you know, it's easy to solo world bosses. I mean, it's just insane how much damage you can do. There is a downside to the Curse of the Dreadblades, and that is every time you use a finisher, it consumes 6% of your current health. So technically, you're only going to be able to get 5 or 6 of these rotations in just because of the global cooldowns. And so at best, you're going to lose about 30% of your maximum health by the time you've run all of your cooldowns out. That's not really that bad, because you could just be drinking a Crimson Vial right after or even right before to negate almost all of the damage that you would take. Now obviously you have to choose the best time to pop these cooldowns, because most likely you're not going to have them more than once or twice in a fight, and you want to make sure that you're not nearly dead before you pop Curse of the Dreadblades, because you will die from the damage that will start stacking up if your healer dies or you're not paying attention. So overall, Outlaw Rogue, very fun. It starts off a little bit sluggish, but as you move through and putting points into the Dreadblades, it does start to get better with energy management, energy generation, and just pure damage and some healing. So right off the bat, I think that this spec is the way going forward. I don't think they're going to nerf this spec. I think they'll buff assassination and subtlety a little bit, but they're not doing that shabby either. They're just very, very centered on single target for doing a lot of their damage. I think all 3 specs are very viable. It's just right now Outlaw Rogue is outperforming a little bit just because it's just overall better with the AoE attacks than the other 2 specs. But I'll probably go over this in a much more detail depending on what people want to know. I've played this. I've played the rogue class for a long time. I have a pretty good grasp on how they are in PvE. I'm getting a very good grasp on how good or bad each spec is in PvE. I still don't do much PvP in World of Warcraft, so this is mainly for people that are casual players doing 5-man, some heroics, maybe some mythics with a dungeon fighter, looking for raid, things like that. So if you're not, if you're a real hardcore, serious raider, I'm probably not the person to listen to. But if you're just a casual like me and you want to get some information on the rogues, I'm here to help. So that's why I'm doing these videos. Anyway, that's where I'm going to wrap it up for this video. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the new specialization, the Outlaw Rogue, and let everyone know that it is definitely worth playing. If you're going to play the Rogue, if you're going to level the Rogue, this is the spec to definitely try out. It's great in pretty much every situation. And that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, if you learned a little something, if you're excited about World of Warcraft, please press the like button down below. Leave a comment. It really does help out the channel. If there's something specific that you want to see me talk about with the rogues or ask some questions that I can answer even in the comments, I will. Just let me know. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel, please do that by clicking at the bottom of your screen right now. And that'll give you an update every time I upload a new video. Anyway, that's going to do it. Take care, and I'll talk to you all next time.